Mark, good morning and welcome to the show this morning. Glad to have you on board with us here.
Thanks, Rollin. I'm glad to be with you.
Boy, I looking at the your biography and stuff. I've just got to say, you've probably been a Trekkie all your life. Is that right?
You know, I got to tell you, I've been watching Star Trek for a long time. How long, I'd rather not say, but I'll tell you, I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it, and to be able to write about it and write what I hope is a definitive book about Star Trek has really been incredibly satisfying.
And, of course, coming up in September on the 8th, it's the 50th anniversary. This book that you've got out in the 50-year mission, the complete, uncensored, unauthorized oral history of Star Trek, the first 25 years was also a book that's going to be... now, you've got two of them. You got one that's out now, the 50, right?
That's right. The first 25 years are out now, and then in August comes the follow-up book, which is the Next Generation through the JJ movie.
I picked up the book the day before yesterday, started reading it. I like how it's written, the timeline, and you bounce back and forth with everything that kind of falls in place and what happened and the results. And it's an interesting read right off the get-go, but I tell you, it's a big book.
It's a big book. It makes a great doorstop. So even if you don't like it, you know, you can always find a use for it later. You know, you can use it to exercise with or, you know, keep your doors open or something because... You know, that's why I wouldn't get the Kindle version. You know, get the actual hardcover.
Did you have any challenges trying to get the information that you've got in this book here?
You know, there are always challenges, but ultimately I feel that people wanted to speak. People had a lot of great stories, and, you know, most of the people were willing to share them. And, you know, it's always a challenge, but, you know, you convince people, you know, to sort of open up and tell the stories. But so many of these people have been repeating the same stories year after year after year, you know, at conventions. And, you know, distilling down the what really happened, the truth, from just the sort of hyperbole and the stories they've been repeating, that's really the challenge. And I think, you know, we've come closest to telling it the way it really was. And, you know, that's interviews, it's memos, it's you know, a lot of really great stories. And, you know, one of the most interesting periods, I think, were the 10 years between when the show went off the air and when the first movie came out, which isn't, you know, widely known. And, you know, there was a movie in which Kirk was supposed to fight Jesus on the bridge of the Enterprise. I mean, really crazy stuff, and I'm glad that we got to sort of peel back the onion, so to speak.
What would be one or two of the things that you have cleared up in this book that were rumored around as having happened, but you've set the record straight?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, one of the things I learned, which even I didn't know, and I'm pretty well versed in the history of Star Trek, was that Paramount was developing a spin-off of Star Trek II, a prequel in which it would have been called Prison Planet, which would have been about Khan, you know, Ricardo Montalban, on SETI Alpha 5 after the success of Star Trek II, that would have focused on the Khan character. That's something that I've never read, never heard before, and I thought that was a fascinating, you know, piece of information. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot about the you know, the feud between Shatner and Nimoy. We go into great detail about that, and they unearthed this incredible memo from Gene Roddenberry in which he excoriates both of them for acting like children, and it's really fascinating because people have talked about that memo but never printed it before, and, you know, fortunately we were able to find it and share it with the people who read the book. I think it's great.
Did the 50-year mission, did it smooth out any relationships that were a little rough?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if you look at the original cast, they really didn't get along that well. It was only later on that Shatner and Nimoy really became much closer friends. Unlike the Next Generation cast, who from the get-go loved each other and still to this day continue to hang out and pal around and go out drinking, and it's definitely a much closer group of people. It doesn't necessarily translate into anything because, of course, the original show was brilliant. And, you know, on screen, those relationships, you know, just jump off the screen. But, you know, the reality, unfortunately, was less utopian.
What or whom is been the toughest one to get any information from?
Well, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, it's 50 years ago. You know, some of us don't remember what we had for lunch yesterday. So really asking them to step back and, you know, remember what it was like back then on set and what they were doing and tell these stories. You know, it's difficult, but, you know, you sort of set the tone and you explain, you know, and maybe remind them of stories other people have told, and then they start to, you know, tell you, you know, stories you've never heard before. And that was, you know, really the joy, was getting these people that open up and tell us things they've never heard before. But it is like Rashomon. You know, you could talk to 3 different people about the same situation, and they all have 3 different stories. And, you know, that's the beauty of the oral history format, I think.
What? How long did it really take to get this all together, craft it out, have it edited and ready to publish?
It's been probably over 2.5 years since we first sold the book and started writing it. But, both Ed Gross and myself have been, before I became a producer for writer for television, I used to be a journalist, and Ed continues to be a journalist. So, over the years, we talked to many people. So we were fortunate to sort of have interviews with, a lot of people have passed away involved with Star Trek. So there are a lot of old interviews that, had we not had them, we would have never been able to include in the book. Certainly people like Leonard Nimoy, but even a lot of the original producers from the original show, John Meredith Lucas, and people like that. So had we not been sort of covering Star Trek for over 30 years, I don't think the book would be nearly as complete as it is.
I think one of the things we should point out, the book isn't just for you Trekkies. You can be somebody more on my side that hasn't had the depth of attention towards Star Trek and still enjoy this book. It's a good read.
That's what I'm most proud of. It's like I knew the Star Trek fans would love the book, but what I really was hoping was that people who are just interested in film and television and popular culture would find it interesting. And I like to say that there's more backstabbing, betrayal, and skullduggery in the making of Star Trek than any episode of Game of Thrones. And I think that's true. If you read the book, it really is, suspenseful and scary and shocking, some of the stuff that goes on.
And way to plan ahead, because like I said, this is the first book, and then the second book comes out, at the end of August?
Yeah, August 30th is book 2, which is Next Generation through J.J. Abrams, and also some amazing, I think, facts that we unearth, and some unmade Star Trek projects that are fascinating that we reveal for the first time. So it's quite a read. And once the two books are together, it's quite a tome. It's the Lord of the Rings of nonfiction making of books.
Well, there you go. It's called In the 50-Year Mission, the complete uncensored, unauthorized oral history of Star Trek, the first 25 years. The next one comes out in August. I hope to talk to you then. Mark Altman, thanks for joining us on the program.
Hey, thank you, Rollin. Thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.